Thank you for joining the US Analytics webinar. This is the first of our fall series webinars, and this is optimizing security. So before in the summer around August timeframe, July, August timeframe, we did do a webinar back then, and we were really talking a lot about OCI. If you are in Oracle Cloud, then you've been part of the waves that Oracle has been migrating you to OCI. So we did a webinar in August. Feel free to check that out. Go to our website, us-analytics.com, and you can search for the summer series webinars and find the recording. It may also be on YouTube. Anyway. So this is going to be a little bit high level. Again, if you have questions, feel free to chime in, put something in the chat, and Catherine, our moderator, will interrupt us. And I do have some of the folks that are really in the details of our, of security for the different aspects, and so they're available if you have questions. So again, thanks for joining, and I will go ahead and get started. So. A little bit about US Analytics. US Analytics has been in the Oracle EPM arena for over 20 years, I think 23 years or so. Oracle EPM is our sweet spot. This is where we do solutions, upgrades, and support. Some of the key personnel from the delivery standpoint, myself, this is Jennifer Conard, if you didn't catch the introduction earlier. We have Terry Kane. He's a senior solution architect, infrastructure architect. Bill Lowry is our president and chief solution officer. And then we have Dawn and Melinda on the call, and Terry's on the call also if you have questions. So Dawn and Melinda are leads in our practice, our support delivery practice. Dawn for consolidations and Melinda for planning. So we combined, we have close to 100 years of combined experience between us in the Oracle EPM space. So this is our sweet spot. This is what we do really well. And so I'll just continue talking about security and how, your tools, things that you need to do for your tools. So if you already have Oracle EPM, these are probably some areas of things that you're probably already doing. So Oracle EPM cyber attacks can still impact your organization. So your IT departments probably, they send out emails, or you may have trainings to do on, phishing. What is phishing? What do those look like? Don't click any URLs that have information, how to spot something that might be phishing. I see that a lot when we have logins to our client information, clients' environments. We have to go through trainings. That's some of the things that you may do, or your IT organizations may require of you. So you may think that, well, Oracle EPM, how's that really going to impact, or how is that impacted by cyber attacks? But in fact, it can be in the form of loss of sensitive financial data. If someone were to get into your Oracle EPM environment, they would have access to your financials, maybe sensitive budget information, even workday files or workforce planning files where you might have your employees, their wages, that sort of thing. And then also ransomware. So years ago, we were aware of a couple of clients that had ransomware for their Essbase environment. And I think it was maybe their page and index file, or maybe it was their security file. If somebody on the team, in case anybody asks, maybe you guys can recall what that was. But I do remember that we wound up having to go to a backup and I think it was a backup, maybe rebuild their Essbase environment, and that was due to a ransomware attack. So even though you're thinking Oracle EPM is a smaller subset of applications of your overall environment, or IT ecosystem at your company, Oracle EPM still can be impacted by cyber attacks. So some things that you might do to combat that, two things, two-pronged approach. One is your IT security. Of course, they're going to may have strict requirements on the network passwords. So these will be where your network ID or your network password has to have an uppercase, lowercase, special characters or numbers, and then also the frequency of expiring passwords. You know, it may be a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, whatever. These areas will be determined by your IT organization. And then also setting up multi-factor authentication. So that's where you might have an application or an app downloaded on your phone. It's a way to have multi-way to authenticate the user trying to access the sensitive information or, client's network. When we talk about Oracle EPM, there are some things that you can do. So as you have moved to OCI, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, with your Oracle Cloud environment, some things that you can do is collaborate with your IT in setting up some of these areas, like with multi-factor authentication. So in OCI, you can set up to use single sign-on. That's definitely an important thing to do. So when you do have the strict network requirements that your IT security department has set, to follow those requirements using your single sign-on to get into Oracle EPM would be important, and that would be, an area that you could do to, fortify your environment. So we know that there are some, in Oracle EPM Cloud, you can set up native IDs, and then also, Active Directory IDs. The native IDs, those might be where you might have a service account. You can encrypt those passwords when you're using the network or when you're using the native ID to launch automation. Maybe it's between PBCS and FCCS, or if it's importing into ARCs, or if it's doing any imports, you can, and it's using a service account, you can encrypt that to give a little bit of extra protection. So just remember that there's a two-pronged approach to applying security in your environment. And in case, I think most people will know what two-factor authentication is, or multi-factor authentication. This is where your organization has requested, well, it's required that you install Ping, Okta, Microsoft Authenticator, Duo Mobile. There's many multi-factor authentication tools. And this is where you would install it on your phone, whether it's an Android or an Apple iPhone. And again, you'll notice this, you log in, you get the ping on your phone, or you get the alert. You have to use two methods to access, and then you get connected into your Oracle environment. And again, this is, you can set this up in the Oracle Cloud, OCI. So I just mentioned the service account in Oracle EPM, but I did want to mention, if you are a client that happens to still be on premise, and we do have a fair amount of on-premise clients, especially with Hyperion Financial Management and Essbase. I have seen several Essbase clients that have remained on premise. But one thing that's important to note is to make sure that you are having the Oracle patch updates, and those come out each quarter. Make sure those are being applied on time. A lot of times folks might say, well, I don't need to update, or I don't want to apply the patch because my application is working fine. If there are any new features, maybe it's a new feature that you don't need or you're not interested in deploying, and that's fine. And you think, well, I'll just not patch. But one thing about the Oracle patch updates is, while they may have bug fixes for bugs, there's also the WebLogic security updates, and those are very important to make sure that your environment, remains as tight as possible. So we all know the cyber attackers, they are continuously trying to figure out ways to hack into environments. So obviously Oracle and other companies are trying to be proactive and making sure that they're tightening the environments, so that there's no really to try to reduce and eliminate the risk of getting hacked, either hacked or getting ransomware or any of those things. So these are some things that you can do to optimize your security in your environment. And I would say, if anybody on our team, or are there any questions? That is pretty much just a really quick intro into optimizing your security, either cloud or on premise. And I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Terry, Terry Kane, US Analytics. I would just weigh in on the on-premise quarterly updates, that in addition to WebLogic, Oracle provides security patches for the other components, Fusion middleware components like Oracle HTTP server and Java. These all get updated primarily with security fixes. So in addition to WebLogic, it's OHS, it's um, Java, um, the actual OPatch utility. So the whole suite gets updated when you apply these patches. And one of the nice things about it is it's all bundled into one giant PowerShell script. And back in the day, they were separate patches and they were applied in separate methodologies, relatively difficult to apply. But now Oracle has provided them all bundled into one PowerShell script. And you basically just run the PowerShell script on your server and it updates all of the components, Hyperion and all the Oracle Fusion middleware components. So I just
Oh,
thought I'd
thanks.
weigh in
That's
with
great.
that.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
great to know. And thanks for that. So, a quick question. So, if we have any clients that are on, let's say, 11.2.4, and we know that they need to, just for security wise, 11.2 we'll say 13 if that's the latest one, or I'm not sure if 14's been released. But does that mean that they are missing security patches from .4 through .13, or are you able to selectively apply any of the patches, just to keep their environment secure?
Yeah. Normally, good question. Yeah, normally the quarterly patch updates are cumulative for the on-premise suite. And so there's usually no need to go to like an intermediate level. So, the most current version of on-premise is 11.2. And since it was released 14 quarters ago, which was 2.5 years ago, there have been 14 updates. So they come out January, April, July, and October of every year. And they've come out like clockwork, which has been excellent, I think, from Oracle's perspective. I can remember a time when you couldn't predict when these things were going to come out, made it much more difficult for project planning, etc. But now they're very predictable. They come out every quarter. They've updated them 14 times on time. So that makes it easier to accept, getting these applied so that you can plan for the downtime, because most clients are going to roll it out in dev, then roll it out in a QA environment, and then finally in production, of course, going to need downtime for that. So it's helpful to know that Oracle is going to be on time with those updates.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And when these are applied in dev, then they're usually a list, or checklist of items that you want to test if you are an application administrator. So you want to make sure your consolidations aren't impacted, reports aren't impacted, and so on. And so that probably gets uh, built in when you're doing kind of a plan, a test plan, right? Yep, we do that when for our cloud clients, when they get Oracle updates, there's a list of testing that goes on in between the test patch that happens at the beginning of the month, and this is I'm speaking about cloud versus when it goes into your production pod. So, and I'm guessing security features may or may not be part of that, and so for that I would maybe ask Dawn or Melinda, since you guys do a lot of the testing of the cloud patches. Have you seen any comments on security features being implemented, or maybe those things are areas that we're maybe not aware of?
Well, really this is Melinda, by the way. The biggest has been the OCI, the migration to OCI, where the security was very much beefed up, where there are lots and lots of bells and whistles on top of what was there before. And kind of to expand, Jennifer, on what you said before about the two-factor authentication, Oracle does allow the two-factor against, it's called an Oracle Authenticator. And we actually had a client recently that their IT team declined to, like, say, integrate everything with, I don't know what they have on their side, maybe Okta or Microsoft, but they didn't want to integrate the EPM suite into that. And so they have a separate authentication that goes through Oracle, which when this was applied, actually, this last patch update, it's been applied to their test environment. And so we can actually see almost real time the differences, because it applied to test, and then this Friday their production will get updated. And so now what's going on is, like, test, when you log in, the look and feel is slightly different, because you do get prompted to enter a code with your phone to approve being let into the application itself.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that, I guess, to circle back to answer your question, yes, sometimes it does affect security. We haven't seen that in quite some time until this big migration to OCI with Oracle updating their backend, and it was predominantly security related.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining. Just as a reminder, US Analytics, we do specialize in Oracle EPM, and the team that's been on the call this afternoon primarily supports, well, Terry's primarily Oracle on-premise. So if you have infrastructure needs, questions, we can certainly help with that. And our primarily cloud team, I'll say, is Melinda and Dawn, although both of them have long history of working on-premise applications too. So anyway, if you have questions, please reach out. We're happy to jump on a call. We can provide support. We can provide implementation, upgrade. Just let us know. We'd be glad to help. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon.